Hi everyone, this is Linda Nelson, and I am proud to say that I am now an author. I do have a couple small journals out. If you would like to know more about them, just message me. But I finished the book about my mom's life. As many of you know, when she passed away in December of 2022, I had talked about how I had promised her that I would write a book about her stories. One of the last conversations we had, she had mentioned that she always wanted to write them down or have them written, but she never felt like she had the ability to do so. I don't know why. My mom was very smart and very creative, but ever since I was a little girl, she used to tell me stories about her life and her family. And so I promised her, I'm going to write a book about your stories, Mom. I promise. And that was one of the last promises that I made for her. And so I embarked on a year of putting those stories together and writing for her. A lot happened in those years. Books don't just happen. They, I believe, go through a birthing process. They come often from the heart, as this one does. So much happened in that year. I had become a part of a group of women that supported each other for an entire year. And my project that I wanted to work on was to get this book completed in 1 year. So February of this year, 2024, I finished the book at exactly February 29th. It took some doing to get it formatted correctly and get all the copies that I needed. And I finally have it. And the one thing that I wish I could do is show my mom her book and let her read it. But in the meantime, I promised that I would come on here and read excerpts from time to time. So this one is about her father. He was my Grandpa Harold. We call him lovingly Grandpa Valentine. And he passed away when I was about 3.5 years old. At the end of his life, he had cancer, throat and I believe liver cancer. And he had gone into the hospital at Hartford Hospital in Connecticut for a period of time. And while he was there, I don't know how many of you know the story of the Hartford Hospital that went on fire in 1961. It was horrible and horrendous, and lots of people died, including a doctor who had tried to go back in and save people. So I talk about that a little bit here in this excerpt. If you don't know about the fire, there is lots of information on the internet that you can pull up fairly easy. I did some research to add to what my mom had told me and my aunts had told me about the fire. So this chapter is called Grandpa Harold. I'm breaking here to write about the end of Grandpa Harold's life because you will see the end of Grandpa's life weaves its way into the beginning of Susie's. Susie is my little sister. Some of this is repeated from earlier writing in this book. It's my hope that you, the reader, but mostly my beloved family, will indulge in some of the repetition of the writings. Grandpa was diagnosed with cancer. I've heard numerous stories that it was throat cancer and lung cancer. Perhaps one merged into the other. Grandpa got so sick that there was one point in his treatment where he was in Hartford Hospital. It was December of 1961. One of the worst fire disasters in the country happened while Grandpa was in the hospital. The 9th floor of the hospital caught fire, and in all, 16 people lost their lives. They included patients, visitors, and even a doctor. The doctor had just finished his shift when he heard about the fire. He went back in to try to help save his patients, and he took the elevator and got out on the 9th floor without anybody noticing because of the thick smoke. His body was later found. The fire had started from a cigarette butt that had been thrown down a laundry chute. The cigarette smoldered before the contents that were in the chute burst into flame and the fire spread. There were no sprinklers installed in those days. The doors could easily be pushed open with 3 to 5 pounds of pressure, something a raging fire could push open without much effort. Nurses and patients were taking sheets and towels, wetting them, and putting them under the doorways. There was one window where the firefighters tried to climb the ladder and jumped the distance to get inside. He instructed the people in that room to wet anything they could get their hands on and put them under the doors. That firefighter was credited with saving many lives that day. There were corridors in the hospital with no escape routes. The smoke was so black and thick that nobody could see to get out. Nurses and hospital personnel worked tirelessly to move people out of that area and into the corridors that they were considered safer. The acts of heroism were many that day. Grandpa Valentine managed to get to safety and helped to get other patients out too. His picture was in one of the Hartford Courant articles about the fire. I have not been able to locate it. After the fire happened, mandatory fire codes were put in place. Hospitals across the nation adopted safety measures like the installation of sprinkler systems, the addition of at least 2 exits in and out of the corridors and other areas of the hospital, and fire doors with special handles, to name a few. Those new doors couldn't be opened by the fury of fire, and they had special latches. Experts have said, as tragic as that fire was, it has prompted the establishment of many safety fire protocols that we still have to this day. Because of those protocols, countless lives have been and will continue to be saved because of that tragedy that happened at Hartford Hospital. So, it just struck me that my grandfather, even as he had cancer and was so sick himself, was going through the corridors and trying to help get other people out at the same time. I would love to find that picture. I don't know if I ever will. I have a subscription to newspapers.com. I still can't find it. I don't believe his name is on there, but I do believe I would recognize him. So there's lots of stories like that. My grandfather and grandmothers were all very civic-minded, and the stories in the book reflect some of that for you. There's stories about when they were younger and had a young family, helping to get people to safety and to shelters during the wartime when the sirens went off. I found information that they had also been plane spotters in World War II, and they would take shifts and look for planes that were coming in. The radar wasn't like it is today, and so the country relied on these volunteers to go out and watch. And if they spotted a plane, they would have to find a phone close by. And some of them went to their neighbors' houses after they would spot a plane to phone in the information. The history in this book to me, is amazing, and what I was able to uncover. So I talk about that a lot. This book has a lot of great stories about my mom. There's also some sad things. So I tell people, there are parts of the story that will make you laugh. There are parts that will warm your heart. There are parts that will get you thinking and maybe make you angry and maybe wonder why I would talk about such things. But I think with all the conversations I had with my mom, that she would want people to talk about some of the hard things from her life as well. We come from families that have gone through so much tragedy and so many hardships, and yet there was so many strengths that have been passed on through the generations to all of us, not just my mom. So I like to think this story is not just about my mom, but a little girl who grew up in New England, and she grew up between upstate Vermont and New York, visiting her grandparents. She was born in Burlington, Vermont, and down through Connecticut, where she passed away in Vernon with my sisters around her. So this is the book, and I know you can't read it backwards, but it's Judith Valentine, Recollections of a Lifetime, and it's a collection of stories as told and lived by Judith Valentine with Linda Nelson. And here is the back. That's a picture of one of my sisters holding her hand at the end of her life. And she loved my mom. My mom, if there was some injustice in the world or she was angry, she could hold on to that. But in spite of all that, she loved deeply, very deeply. One of her sisters, she wasn't talking to them at the end of her life, which makes me and my sisters really sad because we're all very close. And the one thing that always struck me was if she heard that her sister was hurting or somebody had been mean to her, even at the ages they were, my mom would get very protective. And she had something to say about that. She didn't want anybody messing with her sisters, no matter how mad she was at them. But anyway, I hope you'll pick up a copy of this book. It's available on Amazon. I will I'll link the link to Amazon in the pages. But again, you can always do a search. Again, it's Judith Valentine, Recollections of a Lifetime by Linda Nelson. And I hope you'll read it. And please leave a review if you could. That would be wonderful. And thank you for listening and thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.